What if one of history's most secretive power brokers wasn't just trafficking influence, but funding something far more disturbing?
A theory spreading across online forums and alternative media channels claims that newly surfaced documents hint at a hidden chapter in the Jeffrey Epstein story. One rooted not in money or manipulation, but in science, specifically human cloning. Now, before you dismiss it, let's walk through exactly what's being claimed, what the evidence actually shows, and why this theory keeps finding an audience no matter how many times it's debunked.
He donated millions to universities, cultivated relationships with Nobel laureates, MIT researchers, and leading geneticists. He hosted gatherings at his private island in Manhattan Mansion where some of the world's most brilliant minds would mingle alongside celebrities and politicians. On the surface, he billed himself as a philanthropist of science, fascinated by the edges of human biology, transhumanism, and what he called the future of humanity. But Epstein didn't just write checks. He inserted himself deeply in conversations about human enhancement, genetic research, and according to some reports expressed a personal obsession with his own DNA. That detail, reported by the New York Times in 2019, is where the cloning theory finds its footing. Supporters of the theory point to a few key pillars. First, Epstein's access. His funding gave him reach into private laboratories. Second, his secrecy. Financial records, communications, and the full scope of his scientific philanthropy have never been fully disclosed to the public, remain partially sealed or contested, fueling the sense that something is still being hidden. The theory holds that within this web of influence and secrecy, Epstein may have quietly funded or commissioned human cloning experiments, perhaps at offshore facilities, perhaps through proxies, driven by a God complex that matched his reported obsession with legacy and biology. An obsession, allegedly, with seeding the human race with his own genetic material. Here's the critical part. There is no verified evidence that any human cloning experiment linked to Epstein ever occurred. Human reproductive cloning remains illegal in most countries and is universally condemned by mainstream bioethics bodies. The scientific barriers alone, let alone the legal ones, make it extraordinarily difficult to execute in secret. Experts are quick to point out that the leap from funded genetics research to run a secret cloning program is enormous, and that leap requires proof, not pattern matching. What we do know is that Epstein operated in shadows. His philanthropy was rarely transparent, his motivations were rarely altruistic, and that documented pattern of secrecy makes it easy for speculation to fill the gaps, especially when the gaps are large and the man himself is no longer alive to answer questions. And so the theory persists, not because it's proven, but because the silence around it is louder than any denial. Whether this theory is grounded in hidden truth or fueled entirely by fear and imagination, it tells us something real. When power operates without transparency, the public imagination rushes in. And in Epstein's case, given everything we now know, that imagination doesn't have to stretch very far. The cloning theory may never be proven. Sight. But the D question, that question is very much alive. Some doors, once opened in the mind, are very hard to close.